Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Rick the Honest Mechanic, and today we're going to be tuning a chainsaw. This particular chainsaw happens to be a Stihl MS230. It's got some aftermarket parts from what I can already tell. It's a friend of mine's saw and it's got a little bit of a history. I guess it was dropped. There's a bit of a repair on the bottom, but we're going to be tuning the whole thing up, make sure that it runs good. This is kind of like his backup saw. He heats his house with some with wood, so he uses a couple of chainsaws to make sure that that gets done properly. So first thing I like to do before I get started on anything, by the way, this is the way I like to tune chainsaws. Everybody's got their own method, but I like to make sure that I know where I'm starting from. So before I start ripping and tearing into anything, I'm going to see if it starts and how it runs. So I'm going to set the throttle and the choke the way it's supposed to be. Better make sure I got some gas in here, because that'd be embarrassing cranking it over a bunch of times. Oh, yeah, we got plenty of fuel and it looks mixed, so that's great. I'm going to put on some hearing protection here, and I'm going to be kind of pogo dropping the chainsaw. Probably not the right way to do it. Follow the manufacturer's recommendations for that, but I'm going to start it this way anyways. So let's see if it runs. Good sign. Remove the choke. Okay. So that is a good start. I mean, it already runs really good. So that means hopefully this will go nice and smooth. So let's get into what I normally do. So I'm going to make sure that the air filter in here is nice and clean. And I mean, he's already done his job. He's purchased a new air filter. But if we zoom in here, you can already tell, I think a lot of these parts he purchased on Amazon. I'm not quite sure, but he did mention something along those lines. It's got less of the most it's got less desirable qualities than I would like. So it's still in good shape. It does the job. So we're going to remove the air filter just because I need to gain access to the spark plug now. And there's already one broken tab on this side, so I'm not quite sure what that's all about. Might have to get one of those. And we'll pull this out here. Spark plug looks new as well. So I'm wondering what the deal is. So he brought it to me and he told me that this saw was dropped or it was run over. It was a friend's saw. And he ended up just buying it from him and kind of pieced it back together. Wanted me to make sure that it was going to run properly. And as you saw there, it seems to be doing just fine. He said it was hard to crank over as well. That was one of the things he mentioned. But there's no decompressor on these saws, and I mean that's kind of the reason why they're hard to pull. This spark plug is like mint. This is good. Now that we know that's okay, I'm going to do you know what? He never actually torqued the spark plug. Because it has a crush washer, you need to go a little bit tighter. And if you're not sure, it's written on the box, by the way. You'll know exactly how much you need to go. So let's do a quick compression test. And Stihl does not actually list any compression tests or compression readings for their saws, at least that I can find when I did the courses. So what they do tell you to do is they want you to pick up the saw by the recoil and hold it up, and if it doesn't fall just like a free fall, you know that you have enough compression for the saw to run. And I would say that this passes that test. It's actually pretty good. It's got a decent amount of compression, so that's one thing. And as well, you notice that I was holding the saw one way and the other way while it was idling. And what I was doing there was making sure that it didn't change RPM. If it picked up RPM or if it dropped, that can be an indication that your crank seal's on that side. So whatever side you have it up, it would indicate that the crank seal is starting to lose its ability to seal up properly and it's sucking air. So doesn't seem to be the case here. So let's carry on. One thing I also always do on a chainsaw is I always take a fuel sample. So we're going to use our little peanut container here to hold the gas. It's pretty clean. And the reason I do this one is because I know it's not a proper container, but look at the size of this. It's got lots of opening. I'm not going to make a mess. Okay, so it's mixed for sure. Okay, we're going to cap that off so I don't have to smell it. We're going to put it over here. We're going to let it sit. And if there's any water, it'll settle to the bottom. So in a little bit of time, we're going to check that. Now that we have no gasoline in the tank, I'm going to reach in here with a clean pair of pliers. And I'm going to pull the fuel pickup and find the filter. There we go. So there's the filter. Now I always replace these filters because what tends to happen is, well, I tend to drop my tools as well, but what tends to happen is they almost like build a film of I don't know what on top of these filters, and they lose their they lose their flow. So sometimes they seem to starve for gasoline. So we're going to grab another filter in my little tickle trunk here. Got some filters on hand, which is perfect. There we go. Plug the other one back in like that, and make sure that the line sits at the bottom and it's not hung up, because it needs to be flexible, obviously, because when you're cutting anything, a branch, whatever, if you have the chainsaw this way or the other way, that fuel pickup needs to be in the bottom of the fuel tank. And of course the level is going to change every time you move the saw around. Another thing I kind of like to do is I like to grab a flashlight real quick and make sure there's no debris or anything excessive inside the fuel tank. Like there's no dirt and this one looks pretty good. We're all good there. Top this off as well. Okay, now I move on to the cleaning part of it. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this recoil assembly, and I'm also going to take the chain off and the bar, inspect all that. I like to just make sure I give it a nice cleaning. So that way there we know that the cooling system, because these are fan cooled, and on this side where your magneto is and your flywheel, it tends to collect a lot of dirt. So you make sure that that's all cleaned out so that you get the maximum amount of airflow, so you don't have the chance that you're going to overheat the engine. Because you got to remember, when you're cutting wood with these things, these are working pretty hard. 9,000 RPM is not unheard of. So they're spinning fast, and you're only relying on a little fan to keep that engine cool. So this one tends to be a little bit hard to remove. You can slide it out though, without having to take off the top here. You just got to be careful. Just like that. Beautiful. So this is in fact an aftermarket one, and I can tell that because the plastics, it's not finished very well. I mean, you got a little bit of, stuff hanging out from the sides. I find that the proper Stihl recoils, they're finished nicer, and you can tell the color's a little bit off, but it's a very good replica, does the job. Not much rope though. I find it's a little short on rope for that. The spool has a bit of room, but it's brand new, so there's really nothing wrong with that. No sense in changing it, so that's okay. And this is what I was talking about. This is all the debris that ends up kind of getting sucked in over the years, so we're going to make sure we clean that out, and usually use a blowgun for that. I'll probably go outside so I don't mess up my shop, but since we have it out here inside, we're going to remove the bar and chain and take a look at how much dirt buildup is in there. Alright, just like that. So I am going to be sharpening this chain. Put this over here on the sharpener. So in here, doesn't look too bad at all. As you can tell, there was a little bit of oil and it's throwing out perfectly. So that's exactly what you want to see. In here, we don't have too much wear on our gear. It's spinning just perfectly as well, like the bearing's not too loose. This is garbage. Before I forget, and put it back in my drawer. So when it comes to the bar, you're going to see that there's some bluing here, and then there's some on this side as well where the paint's gone. This is normal. This is actually something that's done right from the factory. They harden the end where the chain runs, and it gives you that bluing effect. So if you see it, it doesn't necessarily mean that your chain isn't running with enough oil. It's actually the way it's done before they put the paint on. Now this is, obviously you got the bearing inside here, and unfortunately you cannot grease this one. If you had a little hole, I would recommend you grease it. I have a little hand greaser here. You just kind of push with a needle, pushes the grease inside. And at this end, we've got a couple of things that I look for. One of which is these holes here. I'm going to make sure they're nice and clean, because that hole is your lubrication hole for the oil to go down the channel. And you also have one on this side because you can flip the bar. So make sure those are clean, and the best way to do that again is with a blowgun, or if you have a small, if you're, let's say, cutting wood outside and you're in the bush, you can just use either a branch or your screwdriver here and just kind of scrape out, well, some of that debris. If I do it on this side, you'll probably see a little bit come out as well. There you go, see all that? You want all that out so that it doesn't stop the oil from flowing down the chain. That's going to be perfect. These are all the little things that make your saw run that much better. So let's take this outside. Let's give it a little cleaning and make sure that all of that debris is gone, because like I was saying, this is your, I'm going to call it your cooling side as well. So obviously this is your coil, your flywheel, and then as this rotates, it also creates your spark. But then these fins also intake air, force it across the cylinder, all these fins, and hopefully remove any of that hot air and expels it across the front here, and usually and through the side here. So that's awesome. Oh, and before I forget, since we're in here, I also like to make sure that the spark arrestor is not all plugged up or gummed up. So a couple of nuts in the front here. You don't have to remove the whole muffler, but you do need to remove the cover here. Oh, and it doesn't have a spark arrestor. Look at that. So if it did, it would be a fine screen, like a little metal mesh that you would make sure is clean. Couple ways to clean that is to either use a wire brush, or some people will hold it with a pair of pliers and burn off the excess carbon. Since I am here though, and the muffler is almost off, I'm going to pull it off. So the gasket is there, which is good. And I am going to look down at the port, down the port, and look for the piston, which is right there. So the piston doesn't look scored. That's a really good sign. And this one's got 2 rings. Something you can do as well is I like to make sure that they're not stuck, so I can see them spring back and feel it with my screwdriver. So that's always good. It's a good sign so far. Then I'll go down with the piston and I'll look all the way down in the cylinder, and this one is showing a little bit of wear. Nothing excessive, no gouges, but there are some signs that this thing has been run pretty hard, which is okay. So far, like I said, it's still got some compression, still running pretty well. We're going to put this back together. Okay, nice and tight here, perfect. So I'm going to grab my hearing protection, my blowgun, eye protection, and we're going to go blow this outside, make sure that the whole thing is nice and clean. How are we doing on our fuel here? Has it changed at all? Well, it still looks okay. It doesn't look like there's any water in it. We'll let it sit a little longer. And yeah, I'm more than likely going to be replacing the fuel with a fresh bit of fuel from my good known source that I just mixed. But it's nice to see that there was nothing as for water in that tank so far. Okay, let's grab our stuff. Alright, so let's put some hearing protection on. Oh, and couldn't ask for a better background. If you guys didn't know what the Wildcat looked like after I did all the paint work and all the, yeah, basically all the paint work and the tires and stuff like that, well, there it is. We just took it out for a ride. We're trying to break in the belt nice and slow. But anyways, back to what we were doing here. We're going to be doing some cleaning here. Hopefully I don't make a mess on myself. Alright, so with the help of the blowgun, a little bit of parts cleaner, managed to get a lot of the dirt out of there. Looks pretty nice. You can see all the little spots of dirt in there on the snow there, because yeah, it's like early April, we still got all this snow. It's crazy. But anyways, let's bring this back inside, start putting it back together. So now we know that it's all clean. We're still waiting for the fuel to do its thing, make sure that it's all okay. Might as well sharpen the chain. So I got my fancy sharpener here. I did a video on this a long time ago. I got it from Princess Auto. It does well for what I do. It just makes sure that your angles are perfect every single time. I did remove the guard, so yeah, try not to do that. Make sure, that's why I'm wearing gloves. But that was because I have a larger disc for different size chains as well. So anyways, let's get this chain nice and sharp. Alright, so with our chain all nicely sharpened, we're going to put that back on since I've got my gloves on. And make sure you orient the chain the right way, like that it's facing the right way, because I've done it myself where I put it on backwards and couldn't figure out why my chainsaw wasn't cutting butter. And it's because I had the leading edge, or the cutting edge, facing the other way. Yeah. Must have been a long day that day. But anyways, I like to put it on the bar this way first, if it wants to stay there. This one giving me a hard time. Then I like to go around the sprocket, just like that. Put the cover on. Oh, I missed it here. And I'm kind of doing this upside down so I can show you guys. Doesn't make it easier, that's for sure. I'm just struggling. I'm on like the struggle bus right now. Oh. Okay. Try that again. Put this on this way. Might be easier if I tilt it up, because I think this is normally how I do it. Ah, there you go. Now the cap, screwdriver. So a little trick here when it comes to tightening your chain. So the adjuster on this one is all the way in here. So I'm going to be adjusting it that way. So I like to make sure that I take all the slack from the bar on this way, on the upstroke here, so that when you're cutting into wood, if you happen to put pressure down, because otherwise it'll move up and then you'll end up with a slacker, like a looser chain. So let's tighten this up. So everyone's got a little thing as well. They want to tension it to a certain amount. What I like to do, and if I remember from the Stihl training as well, is you want to be able to pull up fairly tight here and only see the very bottom of one tooth here. So there's only that, and I'm pulling up like pretty tight. So that's and of course I'm putting the pressure up. That's as tight as I like to put it. And just to be sure, very slightly bit more. Then I hold the chain bar up, start tightening up these nuts. There you go. Then I'd like to recheck this. So again, I'm pulling pretty tight. And I like to make sure that it rotates freely so that it's on the sprocket properly. Alright, so that's that. Now let's put on the recoil assembly. Oh, and by the way, look how nice and clean it is in there now. Now that we have some good lighting, it's much more gooder. She was dirty. So, there we go. The one with the little cap goes for the chain brake, and the other three just around the perimeter. Alright, perfect. Now we can put this cover on. Yeah, you can tell these are aftermarket. They don't necessarily fit well. They do the job though. And they're probably much less expensive. There you go. Okay. And now I'm going to put some good known gas in here from my source. Stihl recommends minimum 89 octane for any of their chainsaws, as well as a 50-to-1 oil mix ratio. So that's what I got in here, and I'm actually using Stihl oil for my own saw. There we go. That was a bit of a boop. Hopefully I didn't get the camera person. Alright, cap this off and put this away. And I don't know, guys, when it comes to these caps, some people have a love-hate relationship with these. Comment down below, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the one where it's just screwed in and you can put a wrench to it? Because sometimes that's they have, right? You can actually just wrench them nice and tight. Or do you prefer these cam overs? Like I call them the cam overs because they lock. I kind of like these. I know some people struggle with these because they can be a very big pain, but I like them because they don't get loose and they stay nice and tight and they don't leak, right? So here's a little trick. If you zoom in here, right there's a little arrow. So if you take and line up that arrow, there's only, if you notice, you've got a little divot there. This side, not so much. It's actually not even barely noticeable. But the larger divot, if you line up those two every time, it locks, it comes in every time. If you try to do it the other way, it doesn't line up. So what I notice has happened in the past is people struggle and will keep turning, and what they do is they actually lock the cap onto itself like this, and then they go ahead and it doesn't fit and doesn't want to lock because they've locked the cap. So what you have to do is unlock it this way, and then you can go ahead and, I don't know, just something that I've seen in the past, thought I'd pass it on. Alright, so that's it. This is sort of all back together now. Got a sharp chain. We know that it's in good shape. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fire it up one more time, let it run, and I don't have any wood to cut, unfortunately. Maybe I got a couple 2x4s laying out in the back, and I'll probably go and try it there. But I am going to let it run for a little bit, let it idle, probably spool it up a little bit. You don't want to run it free speed, like without any load, for much more than 2-3 seconds, because then you can overspeed the engine, and then you can cause, internal damage. So I'm just going to run it for a little while, see how it goes, and then once the engine's hot, I'm going to try and restart it. Because if there's an internal problem, if the compression is too low, that's usually when it's hard to start, is when it's hot. So, okay, let's put on some hearing protection, start it up a little bit, maybe bring it outside and see what it does. Okay, let's see if it works. So I did find a piece of wood. I'm going to probably just do a couple of cuts and see how it runs. Okay. Oh. Probably because we had no gas in it for a second, so. Torque it again. Now that the line is stirred, a lot of fuel in there, let's go. Really can't complain about that. She runs pretty good. Now we're going to check the brake. That works. So the idle speed's a little bit low. So I'm going to go get the screwdriver and might clean that up. Okay, now that sounds like a better idle there. Yeah. That sounds like a better idle. I'm going to put the cover back on. You don't have to remove it, but I just thought it was easier to get the screwdriver through. So, okay. She's been running for a little bit now. I just turned it off. Now let's see if it'll restart. I really don't like this cover. It doesn't sit very well. Okay, now let's see if it'll restart. We don't need any choke, or at least we shouldn't. Perfect. Alright guys, that is gonna do it for today's video. As you can tell, like this run is wicked. Had there have been a problem, well then I would have had to dive into the carburetor, maybe go a little bit more diagnosing into what was going on, but I'm gonna go and fire this up again, and I'm gonna let it run outside, see if I can find a little bit more wood to cut, get it nice and warm to make sure that we don't have any issues when it's warm, like I was explaining. So also, our gas still looks nice. It doesn't look like it's got any water in it, which is again a good thing, because it's been my experience that any little bit of water that makes its way into a small engine carburetor like this with a little pump and all these little diaphragms and stuff like that, the only way to get rid of it is to take it apart, clean it out. That's because it doesn't necessarily get pushed through with the other gasoline coming in. As for disposal, well, I'm more than likely going to use this in my lawnmower, because a little bit of mix isn't going to make a big difference in a 4-stroke engine. Or you can also, contact your local toxic taxi or something like that to get rid of that. But I don't think there's anything wrong, and I think my lawnmower is going to run just fine with this in there. So again, if you liked the video, guys, thank you so much for watching. But if you did enjoy it, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and I will catch you all in the next video.